Okay, I'm back again. I'm going to show you another technique that you can use in prepping papers for any kind of collage work. So I'm going to again add a little bit of paint to this blue that we already did, turning it, give it a little bit of a squeeze. Sit it down. If it doesn't come out the first time, shake it, there you go. So again, you can see about how much is there. Not much bigger than my finger. If it can't fit on a quarter, you've got too much. Okay, we will save it, but please be careful. So I've got my water ready. I've got some yellow paint. I also have some oil pastels that are water soluble that are kind of fun to use. When you open it, you just want to make sure you pull it out so that they don't fall onto the ground. So I'm going to set these here. I also have a piece of chalk, and this is a really giant piece of chalk, but in the chalk cabinet by the sinks are where you can get these. Now chalk is kind of fun to paint, combine with paint, but I'm going to save that for in a minute. I want to kind of use a little bit of yellow and blues because I have that here and I like them. So I'm going to start and just put some of this water soluble pastel down and put it back in the box. And now I'm going to get my brush wet and just see how it turns to a light paint. You've got some kind of nice strokes, paint brush strokes there. You don't want to dig too much because it will tear up the paper, but it turned into like a nice like watercolor. So as it's wet, I'm going to add a little bit of this blue paint and just kind of add a variety. When you're prepping papers, kind of prep the whole half sheet or the whole sheet. Either prep the whole sheet or the whole half sheet, all the way out to the edges, because you're going to, remember, be cutting these up and you don't want a bunch of white paper. Okay, so now let me push this up. I have, the paper is wet and I'm coming back in with that same color and it gets a little mushy and painterly, but I like the brush strokes. Now, I can also, I have the yellow here, right? Remember that? I can also come in with a little bit of yellow paint and kind of get a nice bright green, little bit of a variety. And I have a nice little color there. Now, if I want to go ahead and deal with the other half, I'll do that with some yellow. Now, I showed you the solid colors. This is just kind of some variety things you can do to it. I like where that yellow comes over this blue. It's really pretty. Super bright. Now, remember this chalk. So chalk on paint is very dramatic when it gets wet. Super dramatic. But it also kind of spreads out when it's wet. Almost turns red with this pink. I want to be careful not to put the pink into the green because they're complementary colors. So I kind of have another sheet here. So I have a solid yellow sheet, but I have a sheet with marks on it that has some cool stuff going on between the yellow and the pink, which texture is going to be really nice when you start cutting these up. So you can prep papers a lot of different ways. You can also, while it's wet, experiment with scraping things out. And nothing's happening. Okay, never mind. Let's try it down here. This is a little dry, and when I lay on some heavier paint while it's wet, there we go. You see the marks? So I could do some of that as well down here. Paint needs to be a little thicker, and you need to do it while it's wet. But what's going to show up is the paint that's underneath. And you probably did a lot of this stuff in elementary school. It's fun to do it again and now use it for something. So I've got some marks. I've got some pretty stuff coming up into there. So I have on this paper 3 different things. I have the texture with the lines I marked in. I have the 2 blues, and I have the interesting reds and yellows. So I have right now a lot of different things to use for whatever I'm going to do for my collage. So when I ask you to prep some paper, this is what you're going to do. You can experiment with colors. Try to keep the colors somewhat fresh. Whatever you get out, you put away. I'm gonna cap this, let somebody else use it later. There's plenty of paint in there for 2 or 3 people to use it. And I'm going to return these to the drawer, cap them, pack them. And I'll return this to the drawer, clean out my brush. And remember, I also got the end of it wet or painty. Clean out my brush completely. Make sure that it's clean. Water there, check it, good. And I will put my 2 paints away that I've been using. So everything gets put away. If any paint got on the table, you clean that up as well.